Hello, in this presentation we will compare QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop. Hello, in this presentation we will talk about how to print reports and export reports to Excel within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are, the QuickBooks Online dashboard. We will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We're going to be talking about how to print and export reports. To do that, we're going to go to the reports on the left side. And we have this search item here. Now, the most common searches will appear down here. If they're not there, we go to the search item. Now, note that all reports are going to be in this section, including what we would call the financial statements. So we're talking about the balance sheet and the profit and loss, the major financial statements, also in this case called reports within QuickBooks. So we're going to go to the report center to make the reports or the financial statements, as well as other reports that will also be grouped in this area, including the customer balance detail, the transaction list by date. We're going to look at those main reports, those main financial statements, in this case, the balance sheet. So we'll type in balance sheet here. We'll select the balance sheet and we're going to choose the dates of the balance sheet. Now note that if we don't have any data here yet, obviously there won't be any information because we're going to start a new company and enter that information. But we first want to look through here, and this will be a populated field so that we can see those financial statements. We can see the end goal of what we are creating, and every report that we have, we can then use these functions in terms of the printing options and or the exporting options to Excel. Two great features and things that we really want to know those options for, how to manipulate that, how to get things printed on one page. And we'll talk more about that as we go through these reports. So we're going to put the dates here, 01/01/21 to 02/28/21. That's January 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2021, and run that report. Then if we scroll down, we've got our balance sheet, the three components of the balance sheet being assets, then liabilities, then equity within the balance sheet. Now, on this report, this is just going to be an example, just any report that we have. We have a few different options, and those will be up here. We can email the report, which is nice. We can go straight to the email. We can print the report. If we select the printing option, then we'll get the preview screen and a few different options over here in terms of whether we would want this to be printed as a portrait or in landscape. This is going to be important because note that in this printing screen, it's not always going to fit possibly on one column, one page wide in terms of the columns. And therefore, it could be useful for us to change the options here from the portrait option to landscape in an attempt to get more of this to fit on one page. We also have the option down here to save as a PDF file. That's going to be very useful because the PDF file is going to be kind of like the standard printed file in digital format. So that's going to be the PDF file you can save. Sometimes that PDF file gets a little messed up to save it as the PDF. And if that does happen, or if you're looking at some other report that doesn't give you, for whatever reason, the save PDF format, as sometimes happens, or in another program that doesn't have that, note you can still go to the printing option here. And when you select the printer, we could, of course, select an actual printer that we have, or we could select some type of PDF writer. So I highly recommend having a program of a PDF writer because it could be useful within some QuickBooks programs in a form that is not giving you the printing option, or if that PDF option is not working properly for whatever reason, or if you're using some other program which doesn't give you a PDF printing option but does give you a normal printing option. If you change the printer then from a standard printer to a PDF printer, then it's in essence the same thing. We'll basically print this and it'll make a PDF form that we can then save to the desktop. So and I'm not sponsored by this print. I'm not trying to sell any software or anything, but I use this cute PDF printer. Should be a free download. So that's one option that you can have here to download to have a printer setting so that you can then go there as a default option to save as a PDF file. So if you go back here, then you just change the printer to the Qt PDF printer, and then when you save it, it'll save it as that digital file, as that digital printed file, as a PDF file. So those are going to be some of the options we have in terms of saving the information. Now note that we're kind of limited in the option. I closed it, but I'm going to go back to the balance sheet here and open the balance sheet back up. Note that we're kind of limited in terms of the formatting that we have when we print in this way. We can format the form here, I can adjust the columns, and I could do some formatting there, but we have some limitations in terms of the formatting. If we export it to Excel, however, we have a lot more options in terms of how we want to format something, and we may want to export it to Excel as basically a starting point for us to then make a form that we were looking for, to put these numbers in a format that we want for whatever reason that we want it in that format. Exporting to Excel is a huge thing to learn. The basic sorting of numbers and data within Excel, very important, because every office job these days works with some kind of database program, whether it be financial database or some other informational database like client information, customer information, employee information. And most every database program has an export feature to Excel, and that is going to allow us to manipulate this data in many different ways that we could not do within just the normal report settings here. So within QuickBooks, we can select this item, and we can just say export to Excel. This is the nice easy link over to Excel, and it'll generate a new worksheet typically with a tab and that information on the Excel document. So here it is. I'm going to go ahead and enable the editing, and there's going to be our report. I'm going to bring that up here, and it formats it a little bit different than you may be useful on the desktop version. For example, it puts the header up top here, and it's merging the cells. So we're in the Home tab. I'm on cell A1, and you'll notice A1 goes to B1 as well. So if you go to the Home tab in alignment, they've merged those two cells. So if I highlight column A, it only highlights half of that A1 column. So it's really these two. Now that's a nice feature in that it shows here, whereas in the desktop version, we would have to go to the layout view. So I'm down here in the layout view, and it would be up here in the header. So both of them have the title, but the title is located slightly in a different area. If we go back to the normal view, I had to click out of the header to go back to the normal view, but we're back to the normal view now. That is a great option, but note that if you want to, like, say, delete columns or something like that, you're going to have problems that it'll delete the header sometimes, and you may have to reformat this header if you want to manipulate some of this data in some format. The rest of the information is going to be in here. Notice it use some formulas up top. So here, this is just a hard-coded number, whereas this is a formula, and here's the formula down here. So note this is a useful tool if you haven't used Excel before and you want to see how is a normal form formatted within Excel using formulas. You can see this information, how it's populated. Go through these. Okay, that's adding up those 3 cells. You don't need all these parentheses, by the way, but that's how they're doing it here. And that's because if you had more complex settings, then you would need ordering of numbers. But in any case, you can see the basic format of how they're exporting and the formulas to set up this information. Now within Excel, you have a lot of options that you can manipulate these numbers, and you can also go to the printing option over here and go to the print. It'll give you the layout. So we have a lot more options in terms of how to manipulate the layout. If it was on too many pages wide, we can change it as we could in QuickBooks to a portrait layout. Or we have some options down here to scale it down to 1 page or even just 1 page wide. We'll talk more about those options as we go through and print reports and print different reports. This one clearly fits pretty good on a few columns, therefore we don't need to say 1 page wide. But some other reports that we will have many different columns, and therefore will take different pages, and what you don't want is to have the page break, say if it was right here and the other column would be on another page. That's the main thing we want to avoid, and we'll work on different ways we can do that in Excel. Excel gives us a lot of options in order to solve problems like that. So those are the two options, or the major options for printing the reports, formatting the reports within QuickBooks in terms of printing and exporting to Excel. Hello, in this presentation we will print and export reports to Excel within QuickBooks Pro 2018. If you've been continuing with us, we will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. If you have access to the backup, you can restore the backup at the File dropdown and Restore. We're going to open the Open Windows tab or section or list by selecting the View tab on the dropdown and selecting the Open Window list. That giving us the Open Windows. I've closed everything only to have the Home tab open within the Open Windows. In order to get to the Home tab, we go to the Company dropdown and Home page. We will take a look at some of the printing options and the export options for some of the major reports, starting with the balance sheet. So we'll take a look at the drop-down up top. We're going to go down to the Company and Financial and scroll down to the balance sheet. Going to change the date to 12/31/21, so December 31st, 2021. We then have our balance sheet here, and we're just going to take a look at some of the printing options within the balance sheet. There's a few different ways we could get to the printing options. We have the print icon here in the short list, so we can print the report or print as a PDF and use that option to print it as a PDF. We can also have the print option from the File dropdown. If we're used to seeing the print option in the File dropdown, we have the Print Report and Print as a PDF. So if we select one of those items, we're going to select the Print option here and Print Report. We have here what might be a familiar layout to many people that have used Microsoft Office products. Some of the Office products looking similar to this in terms of the printing feature. We have the settings. We could choose the printer that we have. So if we drop down, we can see the different printers that are set up. Here's my main printer. If the PDF writer is not working for whatever reason, or sometimes when you have a different report, it doesn't have that print to PDF option. If you have a PDF printer, such as the Qt PDF printer writer, which I believe is free, then you can actually print to a PDF file, and that can be really useful within QuickBooks and with other softwares as well. We have the layout. We can have it portrait, which the balance sheet typically would be, or landscape. And this is going to be a great option if the report doesn't fit on one page wide in terms of columns. We can change it to landscape and have it fit on the one page. The range of the reports, we can choose a range here. So having pages from one page to another page rather than the entire report. Really useful when we're doing a long report, such as a general ledger type report. We have the page breaks option, and then we've got the fit report to one page wide or one page high. This first one in particular is going to be really useful because if the report doesn't fit on one page wide, as many reports will not, then we could force it to do so with this option without, otherwise we'd have to kind of manipulate the cells in order to get it to fit to those dimensions. We then have the margins tab over here, and that'll give us some margins options to adjust the margins on the document. Going back to the settings tab, we have the preview option here. So if we look at the preview, this is what it should look like when we print this out. The top of this has the options here, so print, zoom, and the close options. So I'm going to close that back out. And those are going to be the main printing options. So I'm going to close this back out. I'm going to choose one other report, one that might have a few more columns that we might want to adjust with. We're going to go to Reports on the drop-down. We'll go to Customers and Receivables. And we will go to the Customer Balance Detailed Report. And this one's going to be a little bit wider. It's probably still going to fit on one page, but I'm just going to show how we can adjust this in terms of the landscaping and adjust it to fitting on one page and use some of those options within the print feature. So if we go back up to the print reports here, and we go to Report, and we take a look at the preview, we can jump back and forth from the preview. Now it does print on one page wide here. So if this was going to another column, then that's something we would want to adjust for sure. If I close this back out and close this, and let's assume for whatever reason we had these columns very wide. And I'm just going to make these wide columns for demonstration purposes. And then if we go to the print option up top and print report, and then go to the preview, you'll note that some of the columns are not on the same page. Now what we should do, I'm going to close this back out, is go back to the report and adjust the columns. That's going to be the best way to do it so it doesn't distort the size of the report. But we could also go to this fit report to 1, or we can first try to print it landscape. That's what we should do first. Print it landscape, then check the preview. And then if it still doesn't do it, it's still not quite there. We still got these other columns on the other side. I'm scrolling through this report. Then I'm going to close this back out and use the other option which says fit report to 1 page is wide. Fit to 1 page wide, and then preview. And now we have it on 1 page. Now of course the text is quite small here, and what we would like to do is avoid that by adjusting the columns first, but before using this option as a last resort. I'm going to close this back out. So those are going to be the printing options. We can also have the exporting options. That's what we're going to use a lot here. So we're going to use the exporting options here, saving the documents to or exporting them to an Excel sheet. Just remember, when you look at the print options, we can print it to a printer. We have the option to print as a PDF file, which can be very useful. And if we don't have that option on some reports, that you can print to a PDF still if you have a PDF printer. So meaning if you go to reports and you have a Qt PDF printer, for example, which is a free PDF printer you can download, then you could still print as a PDF. Very useful option. Next thing we're going to do is export this report to Excel. So this is going to be this icon right here. This is going to be very useful. We can export to a current workbook, or we can export to a new workbook. We're going to make a new workbook and put this sheet to it. So we're going to select the Excel and create a new worksheet. And it will then open up this option, create a new worksheet. Do we want it in a new workbook or an existing workbook? We will choose a new workbook this time. And we're going to go ahead and export that. Should open Excel, should export this and create a new tab with that information on it. Here it is. A couple things when we look at the report here. The thing that's great about a report here is that we can then have different tabs and we can export to the same notebook, as we will do when we go through these problems. And it's going to be really useful to have that, because then you can really keep all your data in one section, and you can actually email it with one report rather than 10 PDF reports. You can put it all on one Excel document. You can print the whole Excel document as PDF forms if you'd like to do that format as well. So it is a really useful feature to have. A couple little things that it does when you do export to Excel. Note, if we look at the formulas here, we have the number format here. If you go to the totals, it actually does total up the cells for you. So we are actually using a formula. So if you were to change any of these numbers, you can change them. And again, very nice feature, because it's really useful sometimes to want to change the numbers to put them in a different format. Within Excel, we have more ability to do some estimates or work with some numbers and some projections, whatnot, outside of Excel, and we can just export the data and do what we need to do with it. And so that's a really useful feature. So it is summing up here. And the other options that are kind of unusual, it's got the split feature on when we automatically export it. Meaning if I scroll down, I got this split screen there, and I've got this split screen when I go this way. So those cells stay the same, in other words. So I usually turn that off because it does some funny things from time to time when we go, try to print these reports. To turn that off, we go to the View tab, we go to the Windows group, and we select the split. So I'm going to unsplit the screen, and that removes the split here. We can also name the worksheet. We can just call it Balance Sheet here. And note that we may not see the header. We don't see the header right now. But there is a header. We can go to if we go to this little icon here, which is called the page layout icon, we can then scroll up and see that the header is there. So when we print it, it's just that it's in the header section. That's why we can't see it in the normal view. Going back to the normal view, we see the Excel sheet. Same kind of printer options. This one fits on 1 page wide, so we're okay. But if it had not, then we can adjust it to landscape and do all those kind of printing options to make it an optimal printing process. I'm going to go ahead and save this now. I'm going to say File, Save As, Browse. We'll go to our desktop. I'm going to make a folder on the desktop and call it Get Great Guitars Problem. Put it in Section 1, and I'm just going to call it Section 1 Reports. So I'll save that there. I'm going to say yes. It's going to be macro free. And that'll be that. We'll close that out. And so that's going to be how you save reports and some of the printing options we will be using as we work through this problem.